What is up, guys? Welcome to another video on my channel, Hairliciously. If you guys are new to this channel, please make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for hair loss news and any updates pertaining to current hair loss treatments in the pipelines. Now, as you guys can tell from the title of this video, today I wanted to discuss a topic of hair transplants in Turkey and things that you guys must know before proceeding with getting a hair transplant in Turkey. So Istanbul is one of the major cities in Turkey, aside from Ankara, capital. And one of the most well-known destinations is Turkey for medical tourists who come to get a hair transplant. And with well over 350 hair transplant clinics in Istanbul alone, that is a huge number of clinics. And it is said that you can easily see men with, walking around in the city with bandages in the back of their scalps, in the back of their donor zones, indicating that they actually just had a hair transplant. An article that I read a few days ago mentioned that it's so common to see men with bandages, visiting museums, walking on the streets or eating something in the restaurants. And some even say that Turkey is the #1 destination for hair transplants. And that really isn't hard to believe, especially when most of the Google ads that you guys see on Facebook or, through Google, every time you guys type in hair transplants are from Turkey. And they offer these hair transplants at an extremely low cost, some as low as $1,500 USD to $2,000 USD for an FUE procedure. Now, most of them are going to be package deals where it's bundled up with, variety of different types of amenities. You have free transportation where they pick you up in, luxurious vehicles in, Mercedes, Benz, Audis. They also give you 5-star hotel accommodations. Some even includes, spa packages. So it's a no-brainer that the price of the hair transplant in Turkey is an absolute steal compared to your typical, $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 that you would pay in the US. Some say it's as cheap as 75 to 90% of the cost that it would be in the US. And even in my case in South Korea, where I got my hair transplant done, I paid roughly $5,000, $5,500 for 1,700 grafts via FUE. And it's not necessarily cheap, but it's also not expensive compared to, prices like in Turkey. Now, one of the main reasons why people from all over the world would travel to Turkey is obviously due to the affordable price and presumably, good quality results that they see online through photos, social media. There's a lot of, Turkish clinics that post a lot of hair transplant, before and after pictures on YouTube. A few months back on YouTube, I actually did a poll asking my viewers, what is the reason that you guys are holding back on a hair transplant? And nearly 50% of the response was due to financial reasons. The second reason was because of the fact that they were waiting for a better hair loss treatment. So #1 reason is because a lot of people are not financially ready to go ahead with a hair transplant. The #1 reason that I believe people go to Turkey for a hair transplant is because of the low costs. And with the low costs of living in Turkey and with so many competition going on with hundreds of other clinics in Turkey alone, the low cost of a hair transplant in Turkey is going to entice a lot of people to come to their country and get it done. Before I proceed further with this video, I wanted to make it clear that there are so many reputable Turkish hair transplant doctors and clinics who do a phenomenal job performing FUE along with FUT in creating a natural, dense-looking hairline. So the ebook that I sell on my website, hairliciously.com, also highlights several top-notch Turkish hair transplant doctors and clinics whom I would definitely recommend. I'm not trying to badmouth Turkey for being a bad country to go to get a hair transplant done. But with that said, there are less reputable clinics than there are reputable ones in Turkey. So you really have to do your full research before choosing a clinic or a doctor. And that goes along with any other clinic that you guys choose all over the world. But if you guys are not aware, the most dominant form of hair transplant clinics in Turkey is operated by a technician and not by an actual hair transplant doctor. So this type of clinic involves the doctor simply, he or she will just draw your hairline during the consultation phase. The doctor's nowhere to be seen during the actual surgical procedure. So most clinics, I want to say 8 out of 10 or even 9 out of 10 clinics in Turkey is this type where it's dominated by technicians who actually do all of the hair transplantation instead of an actual doctor who would, extract the grafts, draw the hairline, implant the grafts, modifications to the grafts, and all that stuff. Everything is done by the technician. Now, the second type of hair transplant clinic in Turkey is one that is actually supervised by a hair transplant doctor. A hair transplant clinic supervised by a doctor involves a doctor who would make the recipient slit zones in the frontal portion of the hairline or wherever area that you guys are getting the grafts implanted. But the technicians are actually the ones that do the majority of the work. They're the ones that extract the grafts from the back of the scalp and implant them into the balding areas. Most patients are supervised by the doctor for these type of clinics, so you kind of have some assurance knowing that there's a doctor that is present to oversee the procedure. Now, obviously, the most rarest type of hair transplant clinics in Turkey and even in the US are actually performed by the doctor who start from the beginning to the end. Now, technicians do work with the doctor, but they aren't really involved in the surgical aspect of the procedure, which means that technicians do not perform anything that involves piercing or cutting off the scalp. So in the US, ethical hair transplant clinics do not have technicians who actually perform surgical procedures, since by law they are not allowed to do so, since they are not medically trained doctors. But you never know, you might have technicians just like Turkey who, even in the US, they might actually, do the implantation, the extracting, and all that stuff. By law, you guys are not supposed to have a technician in the US that is supposed to do anything related to surgical. The ones where the doctors actually perform all of the procedure, the technicians assist the doctor with the implanting on the recipient areas. But like I said, they are not going to be involved in any surgical aspect of the procedure. So these type of clinics in Turkey usually perform about 1 to 2 procedures a day, since it averages about anywhere from 5 hours to 8 hours just to complete one patient. So anywhere from 1 to 2 sounds about right. And this was actually the case in South Korea, where I actually had my hair transplant done in Motion Clinic, where it was operated by the doctor, meaning that the doctor performed everything from step A to step Z, all of the extracting, making sure that the grafts had minimal transection when he extracted them. And he also made the incisions or the slits on the frontal portion of my hairline for implantation. And then the technicians assisted the doctor to go ahead and place those grafts into the areas where the slits were created. So these type of clinics are the best in my opinion, and they are the most rarest and most expensive, because the doctor is, he's involved in all of the aspect of the procedure, and he should be so. And so these are the ones that I would recommend. So you get the full attention and the supervision of the doctor. So, the other thing is, there's no doubt that sometimes skilled technicians do a better job at hair transplantation than the doctor himself or herself. And you guys can obviously see from some of the photos on YouTube, social media. But the misrepresentation in Turkey hair transplant clinics arises when they misinform the patients on who actually is going to perform the hair transplant. So, is it going to be the doctor, or is it going to be the technician who is going to be performing your hair transplant? Honestly speaking, I would think twice if I knew nothing about a hair transplant, if I had no knowledge, and I was informed that a technician instead of a hair transplant doctor is going to be performing my hair transplant. The thing that patients have to ask a prospective hair transplant clinic in Turkey is to figure out the total involvement that the technicians and the doctors have in a procedure. Is it the doctor, or is it the technician who is going to extract the grafts? Is it going to be the doctor or the technician who is going to create slits or incisions on the hairline? I'm a strong advocate that a clinic needs to be more transparent and open about this. If a technician is involved, they need to share information on the number of years of experience that they had on the job. How many hair transplants do they conduct a day, in a week? How long were they there for? And even some of the names, since results vary with each technician. You might have somebody who had 1 year of experience versus somebody who had 10 years of experience. Obviously, you want to go with somebody who had more experience, somebody who can produce better results. And like I said, this video isn't to shun people away from getting a hair transplant in Turkey, because there are so many reputable hair transplant doctors who even I would go to get my hair transplant. However, people need to consider, if you guys are considering getting a hair transplant in Turkey, you really need to be informed about these kind of things, because it's so common in Turkey. And by being very well equipped with crucial information, that is going to determine the success of your hair transplant. A lot of you guys have been asking me, where am I going to go for my next hair transplant? Am I going to go to Turkey, would I consider going to Turkey? So since this topic is about Turkish hair transplant clinics, if I did not work, then I would totally go to Turkey, or I would consider Turkey as one of my alternatives to getting a hair transplant. But because of the sensitive nature of my job, there are certain countries where I'm not supposed to travel to, or they don't allow, or they recommend that I don't travel to, obviously for security reasons. And so Turkey right now would be out of the picture, although there are some really good doctors that I would go to if I could to get my hair transplant. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. I really hope that this video was helpful and informative for those who are considering a hair transplant in Turkey. And if you guys haven't done so, please feel free to check out my website at HAIRLICIOUSLY.com, where you guys can try non-surgical methods such as microneedling and derma rolling to promote hair growth in conjunction with minoxidil. It's been proven through several studies that do show that regrowth is very possible in a lot of the people who actually use this for some time. Thanks again, and I will talk to you guys next time. Take care.